Hey guys, could you please take your seats? Ready? Okay guys, we're going to go to the second talk of the day. Thank you very much to Salesforce for that first talk. I found it really interesting. I hope you did too. But right now we've got Dima from Groupon who's going to talk to us about how to stabilize a Selenium build. I really wish someone would tell me how to do that because I have no idea. Cool. Thank you very much and
thank you.
Enjoy yourself.
Thank you. Okay, can you hear me? Yes? How about now? Okay, how about now? Better. Hi, so yes, my name is Dima. I've been working with Selenium for a couple of years now. I am really, really loving it. I've been just impressed with how much the product has grown since I first tested it out with this little IDE back a couple of years back, and this is like the third year I'm coming to these conferences, and every time the room just seems to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and I mean, it's great. I'm happy for the product. It's not helping with the anxiety level of being up here and talking in front of these people, so, you know, I do apologize, but here's my contact information. We are hiring at Groupon to work with me specifically on automation stuff, so contact me this way. I can justify to my boss the coming here. Hey. So I really love my job. I really love to figure out difficult problems, figuring out how to test difficult problems and so on. And I really love to talk about it. I mean, it's so bad that my wife is actually happy that I'm coming here because apparently I bore her to death with my work-related stuff. The stuff I want to talk about today is my partner in crime, Darko. He was not able to make it here. He wanted to, but he couldn't. But he's a Java professor in a University of Illinois, and he was doing a study on flakiness, and somehow he ended up on the same team as me, and since January we've been pretty much every day pairing, trying to figure out how to stabilize a build, how to figure out all these things. So sadly he's not here, but this is a shout out to you, Mr. Darko. So it's a journey, not necessarily a destination, and to be honest, stability is one of those things it's a balance that once you reach it, you will easily upset it with just the tiniest change, and this is what makes it so scary, because after you finally got the green build all the way across the board, somebody commits one piece of code, one flaky test, and all of a sudden everything just goes to hell, and that just destroys your morally, I guess. But if we're going to be replaced by robots, by the way, probably Jason Huggins would love it, so just giving you a heads up. So in my experience, it's a test. Flakiness is a three-part thing. You have your flaky tests, which are the tests that time out inappropriately, that are waiting too long to load a page, things like that. Then there's the environment issues, such as your databases are not properly corrected, your data is not generated properly, your Windows crashes from time to time. And then there's the cultural aspect to it. So I want to talk about some of these, but today I want to focus mostly on fixing the environment issues. So I'll kind of zoom through the first part. So let's talk about the culture. It is kind of hard to convince some people that you need to have stability up front. It is hard to invest and spend next 6 months or next year just nonstop working on just trying to get one Selenium build to be stable. It's difficult. We all have to do it, but if we don't do it, what ends up happening is that nobody actually trusts your build, nobody actually feels confident about it, and so it's just completely a waste of time. So to help with that, you need to kind of get the developers, the testers, everybody who writes anything with test to kind of get into a situation where you prevent master from going red. You keep it green as much as possible. You punish bad behavior, such as committing bad code on a Friday and leaving for the weekend. Some teams make you buy donuts for the whole team if you broke the build and left for that day. We ended up writing this complicated infrastructure that is incredibly bloated, but basically you push changes to the branch, we test everything one time, and only then we allow you to merge to master, and if anything fails, we reject your push. It's really bloated, but right now it works, so I don't want to upset that balance yet, but it will be redone pretty soon. But basically, the whole idea is that red master is not okay. It's a shame to have a red master. So let's talk then about flaky tests. One of the biggest flakiness that we have in general is with ajax things that are taking too long to load or whatever. So majority of people have switched over to jQuery at this point. Some people still behind, but that's fine, that's their problem. But with jQuery, you need to watch out for two things. You need to see how many active sessions that are happening for Ajax, and two, you need to, I recently discovered that you need to check how many animated things are happening, because if you have a little div that is sliding up and you try to click on something while it's still sliding, your test will fail, and it will fail only once in a while, and you will spend weeks and weeks trying to figure out why everything looks good on a screenshot of the test failure, but yet your test keeps failing. So evaluate the JavaScript, basically wait for that timeout to happen. All of a sudden, things get better. It will honestly stabilize your build. We got to a point where every single interaction with a page is followed by wait for Ajax, wait for the animation to finish. So anytime somebody clicks, anytime you start type, especially for those auto-fill out fields, like any interaction, you just gotta give it time to finish up. That way, it does slow your test down, but not enough that you more than make up for it in just sheer greenness all the way around. And yeah. Next, make sure your tests are actually self-contained. If you're gonna run things in parallel, make sure every parallel thread has its own database. Make sure it has good setup and teardown, that you wipe out the database, that you restart the browser, that you do all those things. If your tests cannot run in random order and succeed, you're doing something wrong. So once in a while, I'll just throw a curveball and just run somebody's build in random order just to mess with them and see how frustrated they get. But it teaches you a lesson. Don't make flaky tests. And also, if you're in the, like I am, if you're trying to manage the CI, your job is basically to get as fast of a feedback as possible. So my goal is 10 minutes. 10 minutes builds from the point you push something to Git. In 10 minutes, you know it's red or green. It's at 15 minutes now, but through a lot of parallelization and a lot of stuff, we went from 3-hour build to 15-minute build. So that feels good. Like I'm proud of that, but it has some downfalls now. Nobody tests stuff locally because it's just as fast to push it up to the cloud and let it test up there. So developers get lazy. Well, go figure. But one of the things that Darko and I worked on is the early notification plugin for Cucumber and RSpec and Jasmine, for that matter. And again, since Darko had a limited time with us, I was trying to get as much done as possible. And after he leaves, we will update it as a blog post. So it should come soon, I promise. But basically, the early notification plugin, it's RSpec and Cucumber allows you to tie into the same notification that you see, like the green dots when the build is going, or the Fs and whatever. So you can tie into that and see, as soon as the first failure happens, you can trigger an email to the developer saying, hey, your build will fail. I know it only started a minute ago, you have 10 minutes to go, but your build will fail. Here's a stack trace of what failure will look like. If it's Selenium, here's an attachment of the screenshot of the page as it failed. So they can start, they're not sitting there and just looking at the ceiling for 10 minutes. They can start figuring out what's wrong with the build before it even finishes. So we are working to push those plugins out into open source, and like I said, that should be coming relatively soon. Next thing we did for the flakiness is the flake detector. Again, the idea there is that as soon as somebody pushes something to master, either ask Jenkins or Git or whatever you're using for a diff, and then basically find out what files changed. If any of these files were tests, then run them in parallel and just beat them up until you either have all of them passing or one test that fails once in 1,000 runs surfaces, because those are the really frustrating ones. You have a 1 in 100 failure, and then when you run, I don't know, what are we running? Yeah, close to 1 million tests a day. That 1 in 100 actually adds up really fast. And so if you can detect it before it actually makes it into the master, wouldn't that be great? Because 6 months from now, when I finally discovered what is causing this flakiness, that person is already on another team, they have no context, they don't know how to fix it. And so the test is just gonna sit there and either be deleted, or I have to go fix it, or somebody else who never even touched it has to go fix it. So why not prevent the user from actually pushing bad tests up there? And whether it is database-related test pollution or just timeout-related test pollution. But basically, we run again, and I'm working with the RSpec folks and the Cucumber folks to kind of integrate it either as a plugin to RSpec and Cucumber, or maybe put it into the source code. But basically, the whole ability of here's a directory, here's the 3 tests, for the next 10 minutes, just run them nonstop without actually restarting the whole process. So it's incredibly fast and incredibly stressful on the tests themselves. So again, blog post waiting to happen, I promise. If anybody has questions, either ask me or afterwards. I will be here until Wednesday. I will gladly talk to you for hours and hours over some refreshing beverages. So next thing is the flaky environment. This is the biggest one that I've been messing with lately, and that's just, if you have a flaky environment, the developers will blame the tests, or somebody will blame the tests for doing the wrong thing, even though it was Internet Explorer that's crashing, even though you have the Internet Explorer do an update and that prevented the test from starting. So fixing the environment issues is just as important than as fixing the actual test flakiness, because they're kind of related, but they're sort of different things. I mean, so a couple of tips on that. If you have a lot of boxes, make sure they're standardized. Use something like Chef, Puppet, VM images, something, but basically all your boxes need to be the same. It would happen too many times where a box that has 24 cores would run a test and pass, but the box that has 10 cores would not pass, and that's because the 10-core box just does not have enough memory, and so at some point it just slows down to a point where your tests become unreliable. Now, is it a bad test? Not really, but it's a bad environment. So these things, fixing them is quite important in my opinion. Okay, so a couple of Windows tips. Besides the self-explanatory one, I've noticed that moving the mouse outside of the Internet Explorer window to 00 or somewhere other place actually increases stability. Something is going on with the Windows IE DOM, that when the mouse is present, for certain situations, it just does something differently and your test will fail without any explanation whatsoever. So initially, I wrote some AutoIt scripts that would do it, but later on, I want to show you something that we've done that's a little bit more recent and that's a little bit more awesomer, and it could be yours for only 3 payments of $19.99. So maximizing the test window is a big helper. If your Internet Explorer window comes minimized, it will act a little bit differently, it will act funky, and it will fail at random times, especially when it has to do with JavaScript. Internet Explorer and JavaScript is a love-love relationship. And the last thing I noticed is don't use RDP or RDC or the remote desktop client, because what ends up happening is as soon as you close it, Windows goes into a GUI-less mode, and all of a sudden Internet Explorer is acting completely different than what it does when you have GUI on. So if you use VNC instead, you can close that connection without actually forcing Windows to go into the GUI-less mode. So that was fun discovery. And again, these 4 things, I mean, I have, I guess, really high tolerance for pain, but these couple of tips took about 6 months of just painful research just to find out, and it was just very disappointing and very kind of like, oh, it's this simple, just move the mouse out of the window. It was a little bit of a letdown. Found the bug in the Firefox when you're running it on Windows on Linux in parallel. So if you have multiple windows stacked on top of each other, the bottom one, once in a while for some JavaScript events, the bottom one will not properly focus and it will fail your test. So what we started to do is split the each parallel thread into a separate Linux window on VNC, and now you can log into Windows 5, Windows 5, Desktop 5, and actually see what is going on there, and kind of makes it easier to read. It makes it easier if you have a VNC recorder type of tool to just record the whole test run from each thread separately and to watch that later. I mean, who doesn't watch test runs at home? You just come home, get some popcorn, a beer, turn on a Selenium test. It's beautiful. I think I do this too much. Yeah. But also to speed up the tests by parallelizing and I guess buying more boxes or any way you possible can, but speeding up the test will help the environment issues in general. Not all of the Selenium tests in your code base need to be Selenium. So just use the right tool for the job. Unit tests can accomplish what Selenium does much faster and much more reliably. Can it be a headless test? Sometimes those things are much faster. If it doesn't need a lot of JavaScript, there's a lot of headless browsers out there. It's great. It saves a lot of time. It saves you a lot of headache. And if you guys never heard of Jasmine, give it a try. It's a behavior-driven development tool for JavaScript. It's similar to RSpec, where you have describe it and you're testing JavaScript. This way you do not have to navigate through 5 pages for that registration page just to test one dropdown. You can do it in 1 page with JavaScript. We have right now 4,000 Jasmine tests to test the JavaScript. They take 2 minutes to run on Chrome, 4 minutes to run on Firefox, and 8 minutes to run on Internet Explorer. So Internet Explorer is, again, awesomest one out. Another environment hack you can do is what I call Blackhole proxy. And this is basically, I took a tool out there called EM proxy, and all it is just a simple forwarding proxy. And then I made it, the browser use that proxy as a proxy service. And what it does is it cuts off any external request. Any request to Yahoo, Twitter, any CDN out there. If you cut it out, all of a sudden you see your tests speed up like crazy. And then too many times I got into a situation where Twitter or Facebook or one of these CDNs was slow, and so it was just sitting there and a test would time out for 5 minutes because just one little GIF, that's 1 pixel, that would not load. So it was pretty great to finally get rid of that. So yes, absolutely. I will. I have it on my GitHub repository, but seriously, it was only 1 line of code that I changed. I guess I can. I will. When I provide these slides to the thing, I will give a gist to people so they can use it. How about that? So I'll be giving these slides tonight. But reliability will go up like crazy. Also, cache any external dependencies separately. So I made a little simple Sinatra app, again, 5 lines. All it does is anytime we go to Ruby gems, it downloads the gem locally, and then we have an instance of it on your local network. RubyGems.org goes down often enough that you can spend 2 hours in a day where your CI is completely red and nobody can explain why. So local Maven repo or whatever other resources you have, just cache them locally, and you will increase your stability a lot. Okay, now to tie all of this together. Initially, when I presented this talk, I wanted to give a bunch of little snippets of code here and here and here, and I started to realize that here's a bash script, here's a bash script, here's the PowerShell script, here's a Ruby script, and that didn't really go well together. So I was happy that Groupon allowed me to spend all of last week and just consolidate into a single product and push it out to GitHub for everybody to use. The idea actually came from David Burns, where he suggested that he had this little proxy that would move the mouse out of the way in Java. So we ended up taking that idea and running with it. I had to learn Java on the fly to keep up with Darko because he's a Java professor, so he wanted to do it in Java. But the idea was that let's minimize the dependency of the tool on anything else. So if I was to write it in Ruby, then you would need Ruby on those boxes. However, it's written in Java, and if you're running a Selenium node, chances are you have Java. If you don't, let me know how you do it. But basically, here's the GitHub repository. I think Luke or somebody in the developer IC suggested that name, Selenium Grid Extras, because it's the basic idea of it is to, I'll let you guys take pictures. And I will show you the slide again. But the basic idea is to help maintain the boxes that are in the grid through programmatically. That way you do not have to VNC into the box every time you need to do a WebDriver update, or when your Chrome driver crashes, you have the ability to kill Chrome or kill the 10 instances of Internet Explorer that are piled up on top of each other and making the VM crash. True story. Am I doing a little bit too much IE bashing? Yeah. But basically, the idea was the reason we ended up using the grid for some of the tests is because Ruby gems would not install on Windows properly for certain gems. And so it was easier for a Linux box to just drive a Windows browser against itself, and so it helped out a lot. So turn them into dumb browsers, but now the grid isolates you from those boxes, and you cannot actually communicate with those boxes. So this is the idea, is to try to solve that, and to do it in such a modular way where you can say, on this Windows box, I only want these 3 features and nothing else. So currently, what that tool will do is it will help to clean up the sessions. It will kill Firefox, Chrome, and Internet Explorer on any operating system. Again, idea is whether you're running it on Linux, whether you're running it on Mac or Windows, let's use native commands like kill all on Linux and task kill on Windows, but basically do not make any dependencies on things like AutoIt or any of these other external tools that are not reliable, but do it purely in Java. So we can move the mouse around the screen anywhere you want to. Can take full screenshots of the operating system. So this kind of duplicates what Selenium does. However, there's a hidden treasure there, because when Selenium takes a screenshot of the page, it takes the whole page, but you don't have the operating system view. So this will take the whole desktop, and that way you can see if there's some sort of a Windows update pop-up that is blocking things for you. You can reboot the Windows boxes, not Linux boxes, but Windows boxes, you can restart them. Awesome. And all of that is done through a nice, pleasant API that you can, from your test itself, as you're doing a cleanup, you can go and start to kill things off. Kind of future plans for this tool is I want to make a video recording, and that way, this is the biggest thing that is missing right now with Grid, is that when I run tests locally on my Linux box or a Windows box as a Jenkins slave, I can record a video and then archive it as part of the build. When the build fails, that way I can rewatch it again. Cannot do that in Node, so finding a purely Java way to do it is my next goal. I would like to share files between the grid and the test driver and the node itself. So if you have a test that you need to upload an image to your profile to make sure that uploading is working, I want to be able to push that to the box, to the node, and say, here it is, it's in a file system, upload this image. Or if you have some sort of like a CSV file that you need to upload and test, that it's getting parsed through the web portal. So basically share things back and forth, and when the test is done, you can download either the screenshots or the videos really fast. A couple of people suggested that spinning up and down VMs on the fly, as you request, you send a request to the grid, give me Internet Explorer. integrate with either OpenStack or OpenVZ or any one of these things, and just to spin them up on the fly and shut them down when you're done. So basically what you guys were talking about, the dynamic cloud, but locally. David Tolley, my friend, we're doing a presentation later about image comparison, so maybe ability to say, hey, make sure that this button appears here and this is what it's supposed to look like, and it will just parse the image for you and make sure that all the UI actually looks pretty. Auto update the WebDriver. I would like to have this thing say, hey, update to 112 or whatever, and it just does it for you. Integrate the whole Blackhole proxy that I was talking about into it. That way the browser just goes back to itself. Improve a little bit on the Grid API. How many people know that the Grid has API? And you know what happens when you Google for Grid API? Nothing. You will get 5 results saying, where's the Grid API? And that, I would like to expose it, and we're talking with Francois about actually exposing it and make it a little bit happier, because there's a lot of frustration of trying to figure out what is going on the node when you have no access to it. So a nicer API would be nice. Restarting the SE node, Selenium node, because again, it's a old Jetty product that has a lot of memory holes, and if you leave it running for a week, sooner or later it will start to crash. So just rebooting that every couple of runs will be nice. And maybe, crazy idea, if people install a little Grid plugin on their laptops all over your office, and when those laptops are not being used, maybe just say, hey, these 3 are not being used, let's run tests on them. You know, just kind of socially engineer people into giving up access to their machines. So again, here's the link to it. Let me show you some demos now. And I will violate my #1 rule of public speaking: never show a demo, because always something goes wrong. So I started up now a instance of the Selenium extras. The currently enabled options are move the mouse, kill Firefox, kill Chrome, all the basic stuff. And launching the Grid right now. So while that is doing, I can pull up Firefox browser. Whoa. Weird resolution. So here's the Grid. I have one box connected that is mine right now. And so this is a little integration servlet that I hacked together, thank you to Francois last night, because I wrote the API for the extra Grid tool, but now this thing actually integrates with the Grid itself through a servlet and pulls things up. So here's a couple of things that, okay, so right now it's loading because it's taking a full screenshot of my both desktops at the same time, but in the meantime so you can see my desktop right now, and the idea would be to just, you can right away see 10 boxes and see if one of them crashed pretty easily, but I can move the mouse out of the way, and my mouse is gone now all the way on my second screen. And then here's an instance of Chrome driver. Chrome. Let's kill Chrome. So there's no Chrome. Well, while we're at it, let's kill Firefox too. Okay. But basically, there's hooks to make some native events and help out with that. The idea is also to have some default tasks that will happen before each test starts, before each test session starts, like start recording a video, and when the test session is done, stop recording a video. That way you get that for free. The config for this is relatively simple. Here's the modules that you have. Here's the ones that are activated, deactivated, and when I say, when you do a setup before a session start, I wanted to kill all the IE browsers and I want to move the mouse out of the way. One of the other things that it will do, I'm really happy with the move mouse, and again, this is pretty much directly stealing from from David. Did I need an equals? But basically, you can move the mouse around to the situation. Okay, right now it's in the middle of my screen. But you can move the mouse around to where you actually want it to be. So sometimes maybe that will be even helpful when you need to do a hover over some object, but the browser does not yet support it, so you can physically move the mouse over. I don't know how people will abuse it. I guess it's for them to find out. 5 minutes. Yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. I do want people to help me out with this, because every time I show this to somebody, everybody's like, I want this, this, this. Yes, I do too. Please help me out. So this is the GitHub URL. Please fork it, let me know, and please help me out, because I really am excited to actually having a stable Internet Explorer build, period. So, questions? Change the color. Okay, here, let me. Well, that answered your question. It's 42. Sorry. Give me 1 second. PowerPoint is being a pain in the ass. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So if you go to github.com/Groupon, it's right now at the top. So github.com/Groupon/Selenium grid extras. All the sources there, I have some batch scripts, and hopefully my documentation skills are not the greatest, but hopefully it will get you started and maybe come up with these things. I did explain how to override and add new modules, and it's you just add 3 methods here, 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 and then add a main method to execute and to do stuff, and that's it. You don't have to do much else. Just include it in the config file so it loads next time you run it. Any more questions? Yes. Yes. He's asking why I recommend Chef and Puppet and which we're using and why. Personally, I prefer Chef because there is no real reason. It's honestly Mac versus PC. I prefer Chef. Some people prefer Puppet. You can have a pretty nasty debate anytime you go talk to ops people about it. So, you know, I prefer Chef, and I'll sidestep the rest of the hate right now. Anything else? 5 minutes. I think we're done. Awesome. Cool. Thank you.